All right, out of these major categories, painting, flooring, cushions, curtains, which is the most fun to do and which is the biggest pain in the neck?
I think we'd each say something
Yeah.
different.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the RV Atlas, which is all about pop up campers. And if you've been listening to the RV Atlas for a long time, you know that that's where Stephanie and I started this whole wild, crazy adventure. It was 12 years ago in our Flagstaff 625D pop up camper, which kind of drove me crazy a little bit at the time, but I have missed it badly for 10 years. Stephanie also bought a used Jayco pop up camper, Penny the pop up camper, a few years ago. She renovated it and sold it, and she really enjoyed that process. And now I am close to getting a pop up camper again in August. So I'm really hoping that come August, I have a pop up camper again. I'd say there's a pretty darn good chance. I miss it so much. I want to have it. I'm considering renting it. I want it for trips with just the boys, and longtime listeners have heard all of this before. I like the idea of having a larger RV like our Grand Design, but then also having that smaller pop up camper. So on the show today, we have two rising stars in the world of pop up camper renovation content creation, and that's Lisa and Wesley Rice from Rice Camp. These guys popped up in my Instagram feed, and I just fell in love with the content right away. They're doing a great job renovating pop up campers. They're flipping them and selling them, but then they're also sharing all of their best tips and tricks along the way on social media at Rice Camp. They are super, super nice. They're from Oregon. This episode's going to be packed with tips. We're going to talk about things you need to consider before buying a used pop up camper. And we're talking used here. Then we're going to talk about painting pop up campers, redoing the flooring, and doing the cushions and the curtains. And they have great tips along the way, as well as some product recommendations and things that have worked really well for them. And they also talk about things that they think you should avoid doing that have not worked well for them. So if you have ever had any interest in renovating a pop up camper, this episode is for you. So we are going to come back in a second with Lisa and Wesley Rice. But before we do so, we have sponsored messages from our friends at Yogi Bear's Jellystone Park Camp Resorts and from our good friends at Blackstone. Hello, Lisa and Wesley Rice, and welcome to the RV Atlas for the very first time. How are you guys doing?
Great. Thank you
Great.
so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, before we got on the mic here, I was saying that Instagram like started to throw your content at me in my feed, and I was like, "Give me more, give me more." I love what you're doing with the pop up camper content, and we're going to be talking, about tips for buying a used pop up camper and tips for renovating a pop up camper and some of the methods you've used. But you guys haven't been on the show before, so let everybody know where you're from and give us like your camping history. Like, how did you get to this point where now you're content creators in the RV pop-up camper space?
Yeah. So, we live in Oregon, and it's a great place to go camping. We love it here. It's so beautiful. We both grew up going camping with our families. My family had a pop up when I was really young, and then we went back to tent camping. But we've always loved being outdoors and camping, and you did a lot of camping too.
Every summer, that was the highlight of the activity growing up was camping and hiking and all that outdoor stuff. So when we got married and we had kids, we're like, this is what we're going to do. This is something we love, and they love it too. So it's good.
I have said on this podcast for many, many years that I think Oregon's one of the best states for camping in the country. Our trip to the Pacific Northwest was my single favorite trip of all time. So you guys absolutely do live in a great
Wow.
place. Yeah, you live in a great place for camping.
Wow.
So how did you get the bug though? So you got tent camping in your history, you got, pop-up campers in your history, but how did you get like the bug for the renovating part of it? Cuz not everybody does that. Some people just go buy a new pop-up camper. How did you come to that?
Sure. So I've always loved design, and Wes and I have remodeled several homes together. And as we were nearing the end of what we thought was the end of completion on renovations for our house, it wasn't. But I really wanted more projects. So I had this idea to find the ugliest, oldest, cheapest camper I could. and that was a pop up, a 1978 pop up for 400 bucks. It was very ugly, and at the time, Wes wasn't really sure about it.
We had a camper trailer growing up, and I knew the quality of those, especially the ones in the '70s, like ours was from. And so when she said she wanted to fix one up, I was like, with that age and how they're made, I don't know. It might just be getting a something we would drive into the dump, but she proved me wrong.
So I was so excited to fix it up that I just went to town. I renovated it in 1 week, and and before I sold it, I bought another one to renovate, and I was hooked. So that was
You're
7 years
addicted.
ago, and yes, very much so. So I do one or two a year. It's just a hobby. It's for fun. And in Oregon, it does rain a lot. So I try and do it in the spring when it starts to get nice and sell it before camping season, usually. So
Oh my
that's
god, I wanna buy one of the
how
ones
we got
that I've
started.
seen on your Instagram feed. Now I want so I wanna
Oh,
stop let me stop for 1 second. I love the fact that your content that you're doing, with Rice Camp is not just RVing. You're doing, like, home renovations, home decor, and the pop-up renovations. That's kinda a unique, space to occupy because so much RV content is, made by, like, full-time RVers, and it's all RV all the time. But most people that own RVs also have a home. So I think it's kind of cool that you're doing both, and there's like this link between the two of them.
thank you. I love home design. I love being outside, so it kind of brings it together.
And are there? I mean, do your tastes overlap, like in how you do a pop up camper and how you do things in your home? I mean, there's some similarities in like fabrics, colors, things like that.
I would say so. I mean, I try to keep it to true to my style. I feel like in a camper, sometimes I can be a little more bold or fun. Like I might not paint my kitchen cabinet um, a blue or green or use bolder colors. But in a camper, it's meant for fun. I say go for it. So I try to keep it true to my style, but have a little bit more fun with it.
Okay, great. So tell us what you love about pop-up campers and in the whole world of RVs. Why are you gravitating towards, buying pop-ups, renovating pop-ups, selling pop-ups as opposed to some other type of RV?
Yeah. Um, so um, the thing I love about pop-ups is that they're very open and airy. And when you're camping, you want to be outside. And with the screens all the way around, it just feels like you're outside. And um, also, there's some other there's
Well, yeah, there's probably three main reasons why we really like trailers, pop up specifically. One is they're very easy to tow. And so, um, for where we're located in our space and just physical space for working on one, it's very accommodating to be able to back one in the backyard and access it. Um, the They're also just easy to tow. So if you got like a minivan or like a smaller SUV, when we go to sell it, we got a larger pool, especially for most folks that we ended up selling the trailers to, it's their first time getting a pop up or getting a trailer. So they are just getting into the game where some of the bigger, harder shells might be more intimidating. We have a larger pool to attract people. And I know Lisa loves design, so it's nice to see her be able to get creative in a small space where she can try out bolder colors, bolder designs, and enjoy it too. So being able to tow it and be able to store it and just the
the
ease of
open
working
airy
on
feel.
them and
Yeah.
just how open and airy they feel, it's originally what got us hooked and continues to keep us hooked. So
There's such a vibrant market for used pop-ups, right? I mean, a lot of manufacturers that have traditionally made pop-ups like Jayco, they don't make pop-ups anymore because they don't make. It's not that they weren't making money; it's that they weren't making enough money, and they can make more money with fifth wheels or something like that. So a lot of the manufacturers have backed out of the pop-up camper game. There's a handful left, but then if you start digging into Craigslist or now more Facebook Marketplace, or all kinds of other sites, like the buying and selling of used pop up campers is like a whole subculture within the RV space. So you guys are saying they're also easy to flip, as it were, because you're not spending a lot, you're having some fun renovating, and then there's a buyer waiting. I bet you're selling them quite quickly.
Yeah, every time it's been the first or the second person to come, and I just sold one last week, and there was like 35 emails, the people, that were wanting to buy. I just sell it locally. Um, so it is something that's popular, especially I feel like it's important to get the time of the year right too for selling in your location. Oregon is rainy in the fall and winter, so selling it in the spring, early summer is like ideal if you're going to do that.
The window of time is very specific for when you want to buy and sell. But if you do that, then you can come out on top. And the nice thing also is that when you sell a pop up trailer, you meet the nicest folks. When they come, they are so excited because it's not something they have to buy, it's something they want to buy. And when you get a transaction like that, we love to share exactly what we've done and make sure that they're set up and enjoying it too. So it covers a lot of the bases for design and meeting cool people, and just be able to get our creative bug as far as fixing and working on stuff, get that checked as well. So um, we've really enjoyed it. Yeah.
When Stephanie sold her Penny the pop-up camper, the nicest family showed up. I believe he was a ranger, and there's 4 or 5 kids who were just, like, so excited to see this pop-up camper, and Stephanie and I, like, our hearts
Oh yeah.
melted, and we dropped the price, like, immediately because like, we wanted them to have it, like, not somebody else.
Yes.
So let's get into the
Yeah. You mostly want it to
process.
go to a good home.
We and that's the way a lot of people are when they sell their RVs. I mean, yeah, there's the type of person that wants top dollar, and then there's the type of person that's like, "I wanna give this to somebody nice who's gonna camp in it and enjoy it just like I did." It's like
Yeah.
there's the 2 types of people there. So I totally feel you on that.
Exactly.
But a lot of people listening might be interested in buying a, pop-up camper, and though the prices can be lower, it can still be fraught to be looking at something older and something used. So, what are some things to consider as you start out on this journey of maybe buying a used pop up camper and fixing it up?
So unique to pop-ups, I always make sure the canvas and the screens are in good shape because that's not something that I want to replace. I like doing the cosmetic changes. I don't want to do the structural changes. There's people that will want to, so if that's your thing, that's great. You could probably find a great deal on one. Um, but I always make sure the canvas and the screens are in really good shape. And then for all RVs, water damage I feel like is a huge thing. So I inspect for water damage, um, look for the ceiling bubbling. I look under the bunk ends of the pop up to see if the wood is um, in good shape, see if there's any watermarks. Um, you want to smell if it smells mildewy or moldy. Um, and then also if it's always been garage, that's like the best you can find. So I always hope to find one that's been garaged. Um, and then Wes is always reminding me like check the electrical and make sure all of that works too, because there was a time when we
Yeah.
bought one that it didn't, and then we had to get that replaced. But
Yeah, there's a couple things you can look for, you can fix, but there's a couple. I mean, for us, we have a list of deal breakers, and so some other people that are looking, these might not be deal breakers, but for us, trying to replace the canvas, the rest of the trailer might look nice, but trying to replace the canvas, just a heads up, is kind of a nightmare, especially availability, just the whole process. So that's one thing we specifically look for. But we've had a lot of good luck um, when you see the photos and you kind of talk to the person even before you show up to get a vibe of how they use it, how long they've had it, um,
where it was stored.
and where specifically how it was stored. If it's covered or if it's been sitting out in a field, it doesn't take long for Mother Nature to take over. But once again, once you walk in and take a smell test, that will tell you a lot. But make sure you look in the corners, ask them open-ended questions. I like to ask, like, so tell me about the wheels. just to see if they talk about the tires, see if they've greased the bearings, just general maintenance stuff. And if they haven't, that's fine. I just want to know, but kind of give them open-ended questions to get them talking. And there's a lot of good trailers out there, but there's some bad ones, and you just want to make sure you know what you're getting into before you hook it up and bring it home. Because surprises aren't fun, but knowing what you're in for, it can be get your game plan before you fork over the cash.
In life, in marriage, in our careers, that advice applies to a lot of situations. So, the unicorn here is a garage kept pop-up camper that's owned by somebody that was handy and did maintenance. Is that the unicorn?
Amen. Yes.
That is it. If you almost need to know nothing else, you could just show up and hook it up and drive home with it. Basically,
Are you
if you
se
get that, we did buy one trailer, and the guy knew exactly how many cranks to get it to be full to go to raise up the pop up. He's like, exactly this
If
number,
it's
no more.
52, if you
50,
do 53, it'll be too
it's too
much.
much,
He
and
was
so
very particular, and I said, I'll take
that's what we need to
it.
know.
so
So, dude,
listen,
yeah,
my camera guy, for everyone listening out there in RV Atlas land, Sean, the camera guy, and his girlfriend Haley have been seeking out a used pop-up camper, and they've been seeking it out for a while, and the deal has not been done yet. But Jeremy, I believe, has found Sean and Haley a unicorn, a garage
Awesome.
kept Coleman pop-up camper by somebody that used it once a year for summer vacation,
oh,
and they
Amazing.
have all the manuals for it, everything. Sean just needs to get himself out to this place, and I'm not gonna disclose the place or where it's, for sale or anything, and
details
Sean,
off
the camera
camera.
guy, needs to bring this unicorn
Pull the
home.
trigger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so anything else to consider, or does that cover it before we move into, like, painting, flooring, cushions, curtains, that kinda stuff?
You might also just double check the weight, the dry weight when you're towing it, and see how it is comparable to your vehicle. And if it has trailer brakes and just the right plug-in and the right attachment, like for any trailer, just general things to be aware of, and what the capability of your tow rig is, so that you're safe on that end.
I would also say have them, if it's not open, open it and close it. One time we went to look at a trailer and they said, we're only going to close it up. We'll only do the crank if you buy it already. We were like, that's a big red flag. We're not going to buy that one. Something is wrong with those cables. So
Yeah.
um, just make sure everything works before you buy it.
Absolutely, and then if something doesn't work, it's a negotiating point, for the price or whatever, and like you said, just knowing what you're
Yeah.
getting into. This is all great info. We're gonna come back in a second and talk specifically about some of the things that I think you guys are so good at, in terms of painting a pop-up camper, redoing the flooring, the cushions, the curtains. Those are all like the first things that somebody's going to do to make a pop-up camper their own. But before we talk about all those things, we have sponsored messages from our friends at Camco and from our friends at RV SnapPad. Welcome back to the show, everybody. We are here with Lisa and Wesley Rice from Rice Camp, and they just walked us through things to consider before buying a used pop up camper. And now, in this segment, we want to get into some of the nitty gritty, some specific tips for painting a pop up camper, redoing the flooring, the cushions, the curtains. Those are the things that everyone wants to do first. So let's talk about painting a pop-up camper. What are your best tips? Any product recommendations? How should we go about painting a pop-up camper?
Lisa's the paint master. I'll let her speak on this.
Okay, this is like my favorite part. I love just the immediate gratification from paint. But so after I clean out the pop up, I take off all the doors and handles, and um, and then after I do that, even if the cabinets are not wood, which they often are not, I don't know if we've ever had one with actual real wood. You want to sand those cabinets down, and it will help the paint stick. Even if your paint says that you don't have to, I always do. It's an important step not to leave out. So
We found that just a little bit of sanding will open the pores, so the paint will adhere a lot stronger to that type of surface.
yeah. So after I sand everything down, I clean it up. I use warm water and vinegar, wipe it down, And then I use Zinsser primer. It's what I've always used and it works great. Um, and I just do one coat of primer. And after that, I paint, usually 2 to 3 coats of paint. And I like Benjamin Moore, Sherwin-Williams, and even Behr from Home Depot are all my favorites.
It's a
And is
small
this a
space, so
true?
make sure you take your time when you're painting.
Gotcha. So any tips for, taking your time and ways to really be very precise and careful?
Yeah, you want to make sure you get a nice paintbrush, a high quality paintbrush like a Purdy or something like that. Typically around the $8 to $9 paintbrush if you're not sure at your local hardware store. And then a 4-inch roller. Typically, those are the two tools you want, as well as we've tried different types of tape, but masking off areas you don't want paint with the green tape. Is it frog tape?
Frog tape,
Frog
yeah.
tape. We've had good luck with that. And make sure you take the outlet covers off as well, and the hinges. You might think you're saving some time and you're going to paint around that, but trust us, remove all that stuff. It'll finish off a lot cleaner between the frog tape and a nice brush, a roller, and taking your time. The finish usually turns out really nice. And also, you want to make sure you give a lot of space between each coat. So usually do one coat a day and just
Yeah.
let it fully cure, fully dry before you move on to the next one.
I'm picturing you Oregonians looking at the weather report very
Yes.
carefully and trying to find a
Yes.
gap of dry weather in the spring so you can paint your pop-up
Oh,
camper, and I'm picturing that actually might get a little complicated for you guys.
yes,
You
you
have
are so right. Especially the last 2 years, we've had, I think last year was the rainiest spring we've had ever in the history of Oregon. And then this year was the rainiest April, which was when I was
yeah.
doing the renovations on my last trailer. So, yes, rain is a huge factor in renovating a pop up.
What are some specific colors that have really worked for you? If you don't mind me putting you on the spot. I mean, have you ever like, tried
Oh,
something like took a chance on something like, oh my God, this is beautiful? Or have you ever painted over a color that didn't pan out?
Um, so thankfully, I haven't had to paint over any colors yet. There could be a time, um, but I on this last trailer I used a color called Succulent by Benjamin Moore. It's like my new favorite color. I want to paint everything in my house that color now. Um, Before that, we used our exterior house paint color just because we had a bunch left over and we already knew we liked the color. It was Gibraltar
Mhm.
by Sherwin Williams. Also, I used Palladian Blue by Benjamin Moore on. I think I used that on 2 trailers
Yeah.
because I liked it so well and I had the paint. So a lot of times I try and use what I already have at home, because I find a color I like and why not use what you have?
And that's a
But
cool link
I
again between yeah, that's a cool link between your interior design and the pop-up camper design. And again, and everyone can go to like at Rice Camp on Instagram and see a lot of these colors and a lot of the pictures, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah. I and in my saved stories, I will talk you through different renovations and what I do for paint and colors. So
Uh,
yes,
I will also add one thing that we've learned through renovating several houses is that the little color splotch doesn't know, while it matches technically, the not always we've had the best
yeah,
luck. So we've done a lot of research before we actually put the paint on the cabinets. And I know for this one, you had researched probably, I don't know, it seemed like for a long time before you realized this is the color we're painting. So when we're painting it, actually going on, she's seen it so many places and have so many samples that when we actually apply it, it's like less of a surprise. Where early on, we were trying it in our old previous homes, we're like, we get finished painting the whole room and realize we hate that
yeah.
color.
Well, is it a lot more fun to paint up like you guys have renovated your home and you're renovating pop-up campers? Is it a lot more like playful and fun to do the pop-up camper because it's like a smaller space, it's less risk if you screw up? Like I don't like cleaning my house, but I almost love cleaning my RV because it's that
Yeah,
smaller confined space and it's so much easier. So like, which would you rather do? Like paint a room in your house or paint a pop-up camper?
yeah. I well, I would say pop-up camper. I kind of like any house project or trailer project. I'll paint anything, but um, yeah, pop-up campers are my all-time favorite for sure.
All right. Anything else on paint? Any other tips on painting, or can we move to flooring?
Yeah, we
You
can
move
move.
it,
We can
yeah.
move to flooring. Yeah.
All right. So give us your best tips, any products. What has worked well for you guys for either covering over the flooring, replacing the flooring? Give us the details.
Uh, so I have a tip for you for buying flooring for a pop-up because the pop-up floor plan is just so small. We've found that we can find a good deal just getting remnants on Marketplace or Craigslist. So um, because you only need like 2 boxes to do a pop-up. So on our last trailer, I just looked on Marketplace and someone was getting rid of some LVT for $10, and we got 3 boxes for $10. So for these little tiny
Wow.
trailers, I would look there first and see if there's something you like. Um, and also, I would say use LVT because it's lightweight, it's thin, and it's water resistant.
We've tried other things like peel and stick, and
Mm.
in concept, it's like, oh, that sounds easy. While it was easy, it's not recommended in a trailer that the temperatures fluctuate when it's outside between cold and hot, and the temperatures for the peel and stick is not going to hold up. When you open it up after a warm day, it's all going to be folded up. So stay away from the peel and stick. The LVT, like Lisa said, is nice because it's the maintenance on it, waterproof, water resistant, I guess, and this the thickness. Because one of the things with trailers, any renovating you do, you have a lot of moving parts, and so you want to make sure you're aware of the elevation changes on the floor. If you got a cabinet on the floor for opening the drawers or the refrigerator, things to keep in mind. So we've had the best luck looking for LVT, and then typically we have a color in mind that we like. And since you only need a box and a half between Craigslist or Marketplace or OfferUp, we've had a lot of good luck because people don't need the extra leftovers from the project, and so they're happy to get rid of it.
Which is great if you're flipping and trying to make a profit. But now, what about aesthetically? Are you is the pop all in the painting and the colors, and the floor is pretty neutral? Like, how do you go about aesthetically choosing what you're doing for flooring, or is that not the first thing you're worried about? You're just trying to find something good quality that's going to last.
So yeah, for I like a wood floor, and over the past 7 years of renovating trailers, my style has probably changed a little bit through the years. Um, but right now, I like light, airy. So I knew I was going to do a darker green cabinet, so I looked for a lighter floor. Um, so I definitely take that into consideration too.
The deal is just the icing on the cake because you're not going to get a color that you kind of. I mean, fortunately, we've had luck every single time that we found the color that we love and one we were going to buy essentially because usually there's a spectrum of shade that you like or tones in a floor. And so if you can't find one on Marketplace, I mean, you need 2 boxes. You can pick up 2 boxes. It's more important to go with the full design, the what the trailer needs as far as the cushions and the cabinet and the total color scheme so that it goes to complement. Now, if you can save some money by looking it up um, on Marketplace or something like that, that's an added bonus, but it's not necessarily the deal breaker. You know, the color I think would probably be the most important thing.
Now, so far, we have not spent a lot of money, guys. There's a lot of sweat equity,
No,
but in terms of painting and
yeah.
flooring,
Yeah.
it seems like you guys have found a way to do this like really, really inexpensively. Um, Anything else on flooring, or shall we go to cushions? Because I feel like when people walk into an old pop up camper, the first thing they want to replace is the cushions.
That's so true. One more thing about floor I was going to say is before you decide on what product you're going to do, grab a piece of the flooring you're thinking about and put it underneath the cabinet door and open that cabinet door. Make sure that the cabinet door will still open. It was a close call with the refrigerator on the last one we
It was within millimeters of making
did.
it, and so fortunately, it worked out. I will also say that when you're doing the floor, it's a tight space, so almost every piece is going to be a custom cut. I think there's like one or two down the center that are not. Um, but again, take your time and make sure you keep an expansion gap. While it's a small space, that stuff does move and you don't want any buckling. Um, and if you go to Home Depot or Lowe's or local place, you can get some PVC trim, and it's paintable. And it's just a 1/4 inch trim that you'll trim out, and to help kind of cover those gaps. And the last thing I'll also say on the flooring is where you start. Um, since the flooring comes in different depths, 5 inch, 6 inch, 7 inch, depending on how it lays out, you don't want that last piece at that door or a high visible space to be like a thin strip. So think about your layout with the floor. And the last part is where the door and the floor meet. Look to see if there's an elevation change. Typically, you got two scenarios you come across at the door with the new floor and elevation height. Option one, I've had it where it's same level. The threshold is a little higher and it just lucked out where it's matches up nicely with that. I'll put a threshold strip to cover it so it matches everything. Step two is actually the new floor is slightly higher than the metal threshold for walking through the door. With that, you're going to want to get some small 90-degree trim, and you'll just trim it out and 45 the angles in the corners, and that'll finish off nice and clean. So those little touches. So right when you open the door, it looks quality. It'll stand up, and the floor you won't have any issues with the floor.
So that's almost the most important spot to think about for flooring is when you open the door, what you see when you walk in. So starting there, putting the most thought into that space because it's where you're being, welcomed into your home on wheels, as it were, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about ugly pop-up camper cushions from back in the day. Like, I mean, you go back to like 1980s, 1970s pop-up campers, and you're like, oh my god, the pattern on these cushions, was it ever in style? I think that very few people, and plus, it's like I don't want to say they're necessarily gross, but you want something fresh and new there. So, what are your best tips for replacing cushions or modifying cushions, or what do you guys do?
So I've tried just about every way to cover a cushion, I think. Uh, Sewing, I can sew like a straight line. I'm good with that. Curtains, I can do. I took a class to learn how to sew camper cushions. And for that particular trailer, I was doing this white vinyl material, and my fingers were bleeding right onto that white vinyl material. And I thought, you know what? I think I am done sewing camper cushions.
There's got to be a better way.
There has to be a better way. So I prefer the fold and staple method. And then we came up with our own twist on the fold and staple method to finish it off nicely. So, which I think looks even better than when I was trying to sew it because I'm not such a great seamstress. So yeah, I say if you can fold a present, you can cover a cushion. Um, so
And
you fold
what was your
the camper
method?
cushion.
Yeah.
So you fold the material over the cushion, kind of like you're wrapping a present. Make sure the corners are really straight and lined up with the seams on the cushion. And then it left this big gap on the back, and we didn't like that.
Also, add
Um,
if you use if you have access to a compressor and a finished nail gun, get the staples as you, and you want to make sure the other part, the back of your cushion, is actually a hard board, typically like a wood or something that the staple can adhere to. If it doesn't, then you're going to have to get an 1/8 inch strip or something to attach there, so the staples actually have something to go into. Every trailer we've had has had a solid back hard surface, so it's no problem for the staple. But we did get someone messaging saying theirs was actually soft back there, so they're going to have to add a backer board essentially to that. But
yeah, so you can add the backer board if you don't have a hard surface on the back of your cushion. And then after you wrap up your cushion like you're wrapping a present, basically, then you either wrap a backer board and screw that into the back of your cushion, or if your material is like this faux leather that we used on our last one, we just kind of folded it around and then used the staple gun to get it in there.
yeah, you want to make sure you kind of don't go crazy with the staples, but nice and uniform because that will be actually seen. But it actually finishes off really nice. And I also say when you're doing the corners, just take your time with the corners, and when you fold them over, like Lisa said, if you can fold a present, you can do a cushion. So just take your time. Don't use tape. Don't use masking tape, but
No.
How about the aesthetics of cushions? Are you ever going for a pop or a bright color there? Or what's your style on those in terms of the pop-up campers you've renovated?
So I usually prefer a neutral cushion just because I usually use or I've always used a colored paint, and so I try to keep the cushion somewhat neutral. Um, I've used white vinyl, like I said, that one was I loved being able to have a white, could have it still be upable, easy to clean in a camper. Um, and then I also used drop cloth material, Home Depot. It's like this light gray tan color, and it's really hardy because it's this canvas. It's super cheap. So if you're looking for an inexpensive material, cloth canvas might be for you. On this last book I did a faux leather because I thought it would be great to camp with. You can easily wipe it down, and um, I liked the color too. It was
it's like
like
a
this
caramel. Yeah,
whiskey
whiskey.
leather
Yeah.
color that went well with mine.
Would you describe your style as being a bit understated in a way, partly because in a pop-up camper you want it all opened up and you want to see what's outside and you don't want the colors inside and the materials to contrast with nature but sort of be one with nature. I'm not good at describing these things, but what's the overall aesthetic, and how does it tie into those big open airy windows and the views?
Yeah, I think you did a great job describing it. Yeah, I don't want it to be too loud or wild. You know, when you're trying to, you want to be outside when you're camping. You want to enjoy the beauty of nature and you want it to flow. And and I always want to just have a comfortable space to come back and sleep in. And
Yeah, ultimately, I think you want it to complement the outdoors. You don't want to compete with it. And so you walk in, you want to be like, oh, this feels like it should, not like, oh, this is where am I at? You know, and I think you've also done a good job when she's choosing her colors, for between the green and the couch. So it all blends together on the inside, just aesthetically, it flows naturally. So it all complements each other, but as well as the outside. So when you look at the outside, maybe some of the accents, the colors, she's good at pulling those. So when you walk in, you're like, this looks like it should be. It doesn't look like, well, this was remodeled, but it doesn't
match.
fit. It doesn't
Yeah.
quite match,
Hmm.
And so I think that's something else to factor in when you are doing your design. Does it match to the outside? Does it match to the nature and the outside of the trailer so it all works together?
Yeah. So an example is that I bought this trailer that was from the 90s and it had this teal and yellow on the outside. And I was like, how am I going to make the inside match the outside? And so I tried to just tone it down on the inside. I used a light gray blue and then I used some yellow accents here and there. And so it all flowed together. It wasn't like when you went and you're like, oh, this is a lot different than the outside. So I do try to tie together
Keep it true to the trailer, I think. And
the
then
exterior
if
and
you
the
want to
interior.
go bold, you can go do that with the decor because you can easily swap out the decor, I think, the decorating. But for the basis, you want to have it all flow together.
All right, well, let's move into the curtains, and that's another thing where I feel like you walk into these older campers and you're like they seem garish sometimes, or just kind of like musty and old. So what do you guys do with curtains? And you've actually, I believe, like invented something here to help the process. So make sure you tell us about that too.
Yes. Okay. So curtains have always been kind of a tricky thing for me in that I couldn't find a good way to hang camper cushion or curtains. I tried tension rods. I tried hot glue gunning and super gluing little command hooks to the existing sliders, but I could not find anything that would work really well. And so we designed our own curtain clip that just snaps on to the rail, the existing rail, and it has a clip on the bottom so you can hang any material on it. We just released it this week, so I hope it helps a lot of people because I know that was a hard thing for me. Um,
Yeah, I think we prototype like, I don't know, 13 different designs trying to get it because the idea seems simple. It's like, oh, yeah, it's how hard could it be? Well, there's lots of different ways to solve it, and so we tried out lots of different options. And after much trial and error, we found one that works good. The one we have now is designed for a 5/8 inch track, just a standard track, um, but something that can easily clip on and hold there, so you're not
And
constantly
this is for
putting them back up after they fall down.
and this is for sale on the website, or where can people get these?
So I started an Etsy account. So if you go to my Instagram page, there's a link in my bio to my Etsy account. And if you have questions, you can just private message me through Instagram too. But it's on it.
Okay, fantastic. Now you don't have to give away any other like ideas you have that you're working on, but is this a goal in a sense, maybe to sell some products to the market of people that are renovating pop up campers? Because I think that's a terrific idea. Because like we've talked about, there's so many people doing this. I mean, don't give away your ideas, but might there be more products coming? Is that a direction you're going in?
Yeah, I mean, we just want to figure out a way to be able to help people renovate their trailers in a simple way. So we've talked about coming out with different designs for the sliders or making some for different campers. We had someone reach out about their Airstream uh, curtain clips, and they were having a hard time, and so we're working with them right now, and we said we'll do our best to design an Airstream curtain clip. So yeah, we just want to help people to be able to renovate their trailer in an easy way.
We really enjoy the community. We enjoy the people we meet and the renovations we see, and so we want to be more a part of that. So we're seeing where it goes. If there's opportunity, we're going to explore it. We got lots of ideas, and just see where it goes. So hopefully we'll back on the
I love
podcast again
it.
with the next idea.
Oh my god, I love it, and I mean, I love the having products is great, for goodness sake. What else? Anything else on curtains? Any other tips for somebody that wants to, replace the curtains?
So I was going to mention I often use pre-made curtains. I've used tablecloths. I've used shower curtains are often a great way to find a cute curtain for inexpensive. And I usually just hem the bottom of the curtains. That's the kind of sewing I can do. And um, it makes such a difference because pop-ups have the screens all the way around. Curtains are a big factor in renovating a
You want
pop-up.
some privacy. And before you throw the old curtains away, you might reference them as a template. So that way you can get your measurements so your next ones will fit just as well as the ones that you tore out.
All right, out of these major categories, painting, flooring, cushions, curtains, which is the most fun to do, and which is the biggest pain in the neck?
I think we'd each say something
Yeah.
different.
So
So
then both of you
my
answer separately. I want to go ahead.
Yeah. So my favorite thing is definitely painting. I just love how quickly it can make a difference. And my least favorite thing is the floors. And thankful that Wes is willing to take on the floors because he is really good with measurements. Um, where I might just say, I'm going to eyeball it. He's very particular, and so he does a great job at
And mine would be the opposite. I
that.
cannot stand the painting. I love leave that to her. But I do love the flooring because I see that as a when you walk in and you see it, I just love it. I love spending the time out there, figuring out the cuts and enjoying it because I think it's easy to see it as a burden, like, oh, this is frustration, or how do I get this cut? But I like seeing how I can solve it to make it look when you see it like it's always been there. It's always been a part of it should be the original flooring, but it stands out and the quality's there. So as long as like it's been added necessarily as far as the quality's concerned and the
And all
details.
these things are essential. I mean, they're all equally important in my mind. Like if you can't skip one of them. I mean, you need to kind of do all of them to kind of create this cohesive whole here. So any closing thoughts, any other tips you want to give our audience before we wrap up? And I want you guys to tell everyone where they can follow you and see where you're going with all this. But were there any other tips you wanted to get in before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to encourage people that if they're thinking about changing their tent trailer or any trailer, there you can do it. If we can do it, you can do it. There's simple tips to be able to renovate. And if you have questions, please reach out. I love being able to help people problem solve and fix up their campers.
Yeah, take your time and enjoy it. It's and take that step to actually make it the way you like it.
Love it. So where can everyone follow you? Give us all your social channels, and where can everybody kind of follow your adventures and get even more tips as you post more content?
So the main place that we are is on Instagram, and that's where we post most of our content. We also have TikTok at Rice Camp, and we have a YouTube channel too, and that's also Rice Camp. And on our YouTube channel, we have gone out and interviewed other renovators, and also
Yeah.
Pinterest at Rice Camp.
We love meeting other people, other renovators, and so we always like making video content featuring them and the work they do. So there's some amazing builds out there, and it's great to meet and show off what other folks are doing in the community as well. And so we mostly do that on YouTube. We got another batch of videos that hopefully we'll be starting on here soon with other people in the industry.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you for coming on your very first time, and certainly hope to have you back on again. And if you lived closer, man, I would be buying one of these. I'm telling you right now, like from the ones I saw on your Instagram account. And I know you keep your margins low, right? So I know I could haggle you down a little. But Oregon's a bit too far away from New Jersey. Guys, thank you so much and good luck with everything, and definitely hope to have you back on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It was so fun to meet you and chat with you about pop ups.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the RV Atlas.
To find out more about the topics discussed on this show, head on over to thervatlas.com.
And to join the friendliest group of RVers, head on over to the RV Atlas group on Facebook and make sure to join us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at the RV Atlas.
If you enjoy our show, please consider leaving us a review over on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen.
And we will see you at the campground.
See you at the campground.